My pregnant sister arrived at my front door with heavy luggage demanding I surrender my master bedroom. I am Marion, a 30-year-old woman who has spent years building a stable life while paying the heavy mortgage on this house. She stood in the hallway with her swollen belly pushing against her coat, while declaring that the child required a more comfortable environment to grow. My sister crossed her arms tightly over her chest and stated confidently, "The baby needs better conditions. You should give the master bedroom to me." Instead of defending our private sanctuary or reminding her that we were the ones paying for the roof over her head, my husband stepped forward to pat my shoulder gently. He looked at me with an overly sympathetic expression while nodding in agreement before whispering, "She is right. Family must help each other in difficult times." I stared at the two of them standing side by side in my living room while realizing how perfectly their manipulative trap had been set. A chilling sense of clarity washed over my mind as I recognized the blatant betrayal happening right in front of my eyes. I simply smiled at both of them while replying calmly, "I know exactly what to do." They thought my silence meant submission, without realizing that I had already prepared a flawless financial execution to eliminate them from my life. Tomorrow morning, they would wake up to find a simple sticky note on the refrigerator that would permanently destroy their parasitic plans. Welcome to another story on our channel where we uncover the dark truths hidden behind closed doors. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss how this satisfying journey of justice unfolds. A few months ago, I started noticing the invisible cracks forming inside my marriage through a series of bizarre behaviors. Adrian constantly claimed he needed to take on late evening shifts at his company to help prepare for our future financial needs. He would return home past midnight looking strangely energized rather than showing any signs of genuine exhaustion from heavy corporate labor. I naturally assumed his hard work would eventually reflect in our finances until I decided to thoroughly review our joint bank statements. Page after page revealed absolutely no additional overtime pay being deposited into our shared accounts over the course of 8 consecutive weeks. His supposed dedication to securing our financial stability was nothing more than a carefully constructed lie designed to cover his extended absences from our home. During that exact same period, Rhonda began visiting our house with an alarming frequency that severely disrupted my daily routines. She confidently navigated through my living space as if she already held the official deed to the property. I frequently found my expensive personal skincare products depleted because she casually used them without ever asking for my basic permission. She would lounge around my kitchen wearing my comfortable robes while completely ignoring the fundamental boundaries a polite guest should respect. Whenever I politely confronted her about using my private belongings, she would simply roll her eyes and accuse me of being entirely too selfish regarding material possessions. Adrian always defended her entitled actions by reminding me that pregnant women naturally required extra comfort and endless understanding. The true nature of their relationship became sickeningly clear one afternoon when I returned home early due to a severe migraine. Walking quietly through the front hallway allowed me to witness a deeply disturbing interaction unfolding right in my own living room. Rhonda was resting comfortably on my sofa while gently stroking her growing belly with a highly contented smile. Adrian sat intimately close beside her while staring at her stomach with an expression of profound affection that completely shattered the normal boundaries between family members. He reached out to gently touch her hand before suddenly noticing my silent presence standing frozen in the doorway. They both immediately jumped apart while awkwardly pretending they were simply discussing suitable baby names for her upcoming arrival. My growing suspicions finally exploded into undeniable reality a few evenings later when Adrian carelessly left his unlocked phone resting on the kitchen counter. A notification illuminated the screen just long enough for me to read a partially deleted text message thread. I clearly saw a drafted message from him promising to secure a beautiful and permanent future for both the mother and the unborn child. My heart pounded violently against my chest as the sheer magnitude of their calculated betrayal finally clicked into logical place. The child my sister was carrying was definitely not the result of some brief fling with a stranger as she had originally claimed to our family. A profound sense of cold clarity washed over my mind as I deliberately chose to suppress my immediate urge to scream. Confronting them right then would only allow them to spin more elaborate lies or gaslight me into believing I was simply acting paranoid. I took a deliberate step back to maintain my usual calm demeanor while secretly transforming myself into a silent and highly observant investigator. I needed to gather absolutely undeniable proof rather than relying on easily dismissed accusations before I permanently dismantled their entire existence. I smiled over dinner that night and casually asked Rhonda how her pregnancy was progressing while mentally preparing to build an inescapable legal trap for the two people I had foolishly trusted the most. Exactly 2 weeks before Rhonda arrived with her suitcase, I decided to find the undeniable evidence myself to permanently end all my lingering suspicions. I retrieved an old but fully functional smartphone from my storage drawer to serve as my silent witness. I carefully positioned the camera lens behind a thick stack of neglected novels on the dusty basement bookshelf. I made absolutely sure the recording angle perfectly captured the main seating area before informing Adrian I had been assigned a mandatory double shift at the office. I left the house feeling a nauseating mix of dread and pure determination, while the hidden device silently recorded every movement in the room below. I returned to the property much later that evening when the surrounding neighborhood was completely submerged in darkness. I waited patiently in the dim hallway until the distinct sound of the running shower confirmed Adrian was safely occupied in the upstairs bathroom. I quietly slipped down the creaking wooden stairs to safely retrieve my hidden electronic device without leaving any trace of my secret investigation. I slipped the phone deep into my heavy winter coat pocket before silently exiting through the front door to avoid answering any unexpected questions. I immediately retreated to the absolute isolation of my vehicle that was securely parked on the snow-covered street outside our home. I locked myself inside the freezing car while the bitter Anchorage winter night chilled my trembling fingers to the bone. I took a long, steadying breath to calm my racing nerves before finally pressing the play button on the illuminated screen. The footage initially displayed an empty room for several hours before Adrian and Rhonda eventually descended the stairs together. I watched the footage intently as the two of them sat uncomfortably close to each other on the old leather sofa. Adrian wrapped his arm securely around her shoulder while leaning in to kiss her forehead with disgusting familiarity. He spoke with a sickeningly reassuring tone that made my stomach physically churn in the cold vehicle. I told you that you have absolutely nothing to worry about because this house will be ours sooner or later. Rhonda leaned her head comfortably against his chest while nervously resting her hand over her pregnant belly. She let out a heavy sigh before expressing her highly calculated concerns regarding their living arrangements. I am just afraid she will absolutely refuse to move out, so it will be very cramped when the baby is finally born. They never once explicitly uttered the specific word affair during the entirety of their recorded conversation. However, their intimate physical contact and detailed promises regarding the future of the unborn child exposed the filthy reality I had dreaded. I sat completely frozen in my driver's seat while absorbing the massive scale of their malicious strategy. They planned to implement a relentless campaign of psychological pressure designed to make my daily existence utterly unbearable. Their ultimate objective was to gradually force me into voluntarily packing my bags out of sheer mental exhaustion. The most devastating segment of their discussion involved their incredibly arrogant financial expectations regarding the property itself. They smugly calculated how my deep sense of personal responsibility would prevent me from allowing the property to fall into foreclosure. They fully expected me to continue paying the expensive monthly mortgage out of my own pocket just to protect my pristine credit score from being permanently ruined. They literally wanted me to finance their comfortable new life together, while I was pushed out into the harsh reality of finding a new home. I firmly pressed the power button to turn off the glowing screen, while letting the brutal reality of their betrayal permanently harden my breaking heart into solid ice. Exactly 1 week before their pathetic theatrical performance officially began, I sat across the desk from my lawyer inside a highly secure downtown Anchorage office. I deliberately placed the old smartphone containing the undeniable video evidence directly onto his polished wooden table to officially initiate the unilateral divorce proceedings. Watching his professional expression harden as he reviewed the footage confirmed that my strategy to ruthlessly protect my future was entirely justified. We spent several hours meticulously establishing a comprehensive legal fortress designed specifically to shield my personal assets from any upcoming marital disputes. He guided me through the complex paperwork required to permanently sever my legal liabilities from the man who was actively conspiring against my well-being. He immediately began drafting the necessary injunctions to prevent the unauthorized sale of any jointly owned property before the court could officially intervene. My immediate next destination was a completely different financial institution located on the opposite side of the freezing city. I sat down with a senior personal banker to open a totally independent account that Adrian would never be able to access or even locate. I swiftly transferred my entire monthly salary along with all my legally protected personal savings into this newly established secure vault. Taking this decisive financial action provided a massive sense of relief because it ensured my betrayers could never drain my hard-earned money to fund their delusions. They would very soon discover that their grand plans to build a comfortable life together were entirely dependent on a funding source that no longer existed. I placed my crisp new debit card deep inside my wallet while experiencing the very first taste of genuine financial freedom. I returned to my residence during the late morning hours when I knew for a definitive fact the property would be completely abandoned. I walked methodically through the quiet rooms to systematically gather all the original house deeds alongside my crucial insurance contracts from the hidden wall safe. I also collected my most expensive inherited jewelry pieces to prevent them from ever becoming collateral damage in the impending fallout. I carefully organized every single irreplaceable document inside a heavy cardboard box before sealing the edges tightly with multiple layers of industrial packing tape. Every piece of tape I applied felt like another necessary step toward reclaiming my absolute independence from a highly toxic and manipulative environment. I immediately carried the heavy container out to my vehicle and drove directly toward the residence of my best friend Clara to secure my valuables. I pulled up to her property while mentally preparing a plausible excuse about needing to clear out our winter storage space for some upcoming house guests. She walked out to her snowy driveway to meet me with a highly perceptive expression that indicated she already sensed the heavy gravity of my unannounced visit. "I really need to store this heavy box here for a short time, so please do not ask any more questions about the situation," I told her while gripping the cardboard edges tightly. Clara looked at my face for a long moment before silently pressing the remote button to open her large garage door. "You do not need to explain anything to me, so just leave everything right here and come get it whenever you need it." Her unwavering and silent support provided me with an immense wave of psychological comfort during an incredibly volatile transition period in my life. I finally felt completely assured knowing my core financial documents were safely hidden away from any potential sabotage or desperate theft. Adrian would never be able to discover these critical papers to use them as malicious leverage against me during the upcoming legal warfare. I drove back to my house feeling thoroughly prepared to execute the final stages of my plan without leaving any vulnerable blind spots behind. The snowy roads back to my neighborhood felt noticeably less treacherous as the heavy burden of anxiety finally began lifting from my tired shoulders. Exactly 3 days before Rhonda confidently stepped into my house, I drove directly to the specific bank branch managing our shared residential mortgage. I walked inside the quiet financial building to meet directly with the senior bank loan officer, Mr. Wells, regarding my highly sensitive situation. I sat comfortably across his meticulously organized desk while sliding a thick envelope containing the undeniable evidence of my severe marital dispute toward his waiting hands. I needed to ensure my personal financial liabilities were completely severed before the impending explosion permanently destroyed everything in its immediate path. I want to submit a formal request to activate the property resolution clause due to a severe marital dispute. I told him with absolute conviction while maintaining steady eye contact. Mr. Wells carefully reviewed the preliminary legal documents spread across his desk before nodding his head in complete professional understanding. We will receive this file and freeze all derivative mortgage transactions on this property until a new legal ruling is officially made, he assured me in a calm, administrative tone. This specific banking procedure effectively blocked Adrian from ever attempting to use our shared house as collateral to withdraw any additional cash lines of credit. He would be completely incapable of secretly extracting home equity to improperly fund his pathetic new living arrangements with my highly deceptive sister. The next crucial step required me to review and sign a binding administrative document immediately canceling the automatic monthly mortgage deduction currently linked to my personal checking account. I watched the ink dry on the cancellation form while realizing this single signature completely eliminated the massive financial safety net my husband had continuously exploited for several years. Removing my banking details successfully transferred the entire heavy burden of the upcoming monthly housing payments squarely onto the thoroughly unprepared shoulders of Adrian. He would very soon experience the brutal reality of maintaining an expensive lifestyle he could not actually afford without my reliable financial subsidies masking his inadequate personal income. I thanked Mr. Wells for his swift professional assistance before gathering my official copies of the finalized paperwork into my leather briefcase. I left the bank feeling remarkably lighter before driving across the snowy city to finalize the essential paperwork for my secure new residential sanctuary. I officially signed a comprehensive lease agreement for a modern apartment unit located within a residential complex, featuring extremely strict internal security protocols. The property management company required restricted electronic access for every single floor, which guaranteed my treacherous family members could never ambush me at my new front door. I confidently paid 6 entire months of rent upfront using the legally protected funds I had recently transferred into my completely independent financial account. Walking through the completely empty rooms of my new apartment allowed me to visualize a peaceful future free from constant emotional manipulation. Holding the cold metal keys securely in my hand provided a profound sense of genuine safety that I had not experienced in several chaotic months. I returned to our marital home later that afternoon to deliberately resume playing the thoroughly exhausting role of a completely oblivious and normal wife. I patiently folded the clean laundry and prepared a warm dinner while silently watching Adrian move around the living room with his usual arrogant sense of unearned entitlement. He casually complained about his minor workplace frustrations while I served his evening meal with a perfectly practiced smile, masking my deep internal contempt. He occasionally smiled down at his glowing phone screen, while undoubtedly messaging Rhonda about their brilliantly orchestrated future together inside this very house. I scrubbed the cooking pans with deliberate focus to prevent my burning disgust from showing on my face during our casual evening conversations. I simply washed the remaining dishes while mentally counting down the remaining hours until the two arrogant traitors finally stepped into the inescapable trap I had meticulously prepared for them. Returning to that very night when the loud snoring of Adrian and the steady breathing rhythm of Rhonda echoed from their separate bedrooms, I finally began my ultimate execution. I systematically pulled my remaining personal clothing items from the wooden wardrobe with incredibly deliberate and highly organized movements. My primary objective was to ensure absolutely nothing was left behind that could possibly trigger any lingering memories of my previous existence within these walls. I folded each garment with mechanical precision before placing them securely into my large travel suitcase to maximize the available storage capacity. Erasing my physical presence from the entire property felt remarkably empowering after spending so many years attempting to build a stable family sanctuary here. I carefully rolled my heavy luggage out into the dimly lit hallway while making absolutely sure the wheels remained completely silent against the polished hardwood floor. I deliberately halted my forward momentum for exactly 3 seconds right in front of the closed master bedroom door. This was the specific room they mistakenly believed would soon become their comfortable new romantic nest once they successfully bullied me out of the picture. Standing there in the absolute darkness allowed me to fully process the sheer audacity of their manipulative scheme before leaving them to face the incoming financial wreckage. I silently carried my belongings toward the kitchen area to perform the most symbolic action of my entire departure sequence. I slowly slid the freezing diamond wedding ring off my left finger before placing the metallic band directly onto the smooth granite kitchen counter. The expensive piece of jewelry suddenly looked completely worthless sitting there under the faint moonlight filtering through the nearby window. Leaving the house keys on the counter alongside the wedding ring represented my complete surrender of any remaining attachments to this contaminated property. I reached into my heavy winter coat pocket to retrieve a black permanent marker alongside a blank piece of yellow stationery paper. I needed to compose a remarkably brief message that would instantly deliver the maximum amount of psychological destruction possible upon their awakening. I pressed the dark ink firmly against the paper to write my final communication to the man who severely betrayed me. Hello, Adrian. This entire house and the resulting pregnancy are both completely yours now. The commercial bank will definitively contact you tomorrow morning to collect the massive mortgage payment. I truly wish you both a lifetime of happiness dealing with this crushing debt. I firmly pressed the adhesive backing of the yellow paper directly onto the center of the stainless steel refrigerator door. This was the absolute most strategic location because Adrian possessed a deeply ingrained daily habit of fetching a cold glass of water immediately upon waking up. He would be entirely unable to avoid reading my lethal parting words before his morning coffee could even begin to clear his arrogant mind. The vibrant yellow color of the sticky note stood out aggressively against the metallic appliance surface like a glowing warning sign indicating an impending disaster. I grabbed the sturdy handle of my suitcase one final time before walking out through the heavy front door without ever casting a single glance back over my shoulder. I inserted my metallic key into the exterior lock to secure the entrance mechanism with a satisfyingly final clicking sound echoing through the quiet porch. My reliable vehicle was already waiting in the snowy driveway, with the engine quietly running to provide immediate warmth against the freezing Alaskan winter air. I shifted the transmission into gear and steered the vehicle straight toward my highly secure new apartment complex located across the sleeping city. I was permanently leaving those two deceitful individuals completely trapped inside their own pathetic illusion of a victorious future. Exactly at 8 o'clock the following morning, my brand new mobile phone screen illuminated to display dozens of panicked missed calls coming from Adrian. He had obviously woken up expecting to begin his comfortable new life before walking into the kitchen to discover my brightly colored note plastered across the refrigerator door. Reading those carefully chosen words instantly shattered his arrogant illusion while brutally exposing the dirty secret he desperately wanted to keep hidden. The terrifying realization that his impenetrable financial shield had completely evaporated over a single night must have sent a massive wave of paralyzing panic straight through his cowardly nervous system. His grand strategy to effortlessly inherit an expensive residential property while secretly building a new family was now entirely collapsing around him. The catastrophic situation escalated rapidly when his phone buzzed with an incoming call from the commercial bank managing our previously joint mortgage account. Mr. Wells delivered the devastating official news regarding the temporary freezing of the property assets pending a formal marital dispute resolution. The bank explicitly demanded an immediate cash payment to cover the expensive monthly mortgage installment since my automatic deduction authorization had been permanently revoked. Adrian frantically attempted to process this impossible financial demand while realizing he no longer possessed any legitimate access to my supplementary income streams. He instinctively reached for his wallet to check his credit cards, only to discover that every single account linked to my name was already completely deactivated. Marion, please pick up the phone right now because the bank just called and you absolutely cannot do this to me. Adrian practically screamed into my voicemail with a highly pathetic tremor vibrating through his desperate voice. He stood completely frozen in the middle of the kitchen while the brutal reality of his total financial ruin became impossible to ignore. He did not have a single dime of available personal savings to maintain the luxurious lifestyle he had confidently promised his pregnant lover. The carefully crafted image of a highly capable provider he had projected to secure her affection was suddenly ripped away to reveal an entirely dependent parasite. Rhonda walked into the room expecting a pleasant morning greeting, but instead encountered a terrified man desperately clutching a useless piece of yellow stationery. She listened quietly as he frantically tried to explain the massive financial disaster rapidly unfolding around their newly acquired domestic paradise. Rhonda did not shed a single tear or scream in emotional agony upon learning that their deceptive affair had been thoroughly exposed to the entire world. She simply stared at him with the chillingly pragmatic calculation of an experienced opportunist realizing her chosen target had absolutely no remaining value. You confidently promised me that everything was completely taken care of, but now you expect me to figure out how to pay for this massive house, Rhonda asked with an incredibly cold and unforgiving tone that completely ignored his obvious emotional distress. She immediately recognized that binding herself to a completely bankrupt man facing an aggressive legal divorce would inevitably destroy her own comfortable future. The underlying romantic affection they had supposedly shared was instantly replaced by a toxic atmosphere of mutual resentment echoing through the empty hallways. They were finally forced to confront the devastating consequences of their own malicious actions without having my reliable financial foundation to absorb the heavy impact. I simply deleted his frantic voicemails while quietly enjoying a hot cup of coffee inside my secure new apartment located miles away from their unfolding misery. Months passed since the frozen night I walked away from that chaotic disaster, while their fragile reality slowly crumbled exactly as the legal system dictated. The commercial bank officially initiated the aggressive foreclosure process against our shared property because Adrian continuously failed to meet the expensive monthly mortgage obligations. Local law enforcement officers eventually arrived at the front door to execute the formal eviction notice, forcing the two betrayers to permanently vacate the premises. The aggressive financial default completely decimated the credit score Adrian had spent his entire adult life desperately trying to maintain. His documented history of severe financial delinquency effectively guaranteed he would remain entirely incapable of securing any decent rental apartment anywhere within the Anchorage city limits. Rhonda quickly evaluated the disastrous situation before realizing her chosen romantic partner possessed absolutely no remaining value or reliable stability to offer her. She packed her own heavy luggage without offering any comforting words before walking out the door to seek refuge in a subsidized public housing complex designed for low-income residents. She was finally forced to endure the incredibly harsh consequences generated by her own selfish manipulation while carrying a child into a highly uncertain environment. She chose to align herself with a completely useless man who could not even afford to keep a roof over their heads without relying on his wife. The family court system officially finalized my unilateral divorce petition with remarkable speed because Adrian lacked the essential financial resources to hire competent legal representation to challenge my demands. The presiding judge legally authorized the complete liquidation of the contested real estate property, which successfully returned my initial financial investment directly into my secure bank account. I officially severed every remaining legal tie to the deceitful man who had foolishly attempted to exploit my deep sense of family responsibility for his own personal gain. Standing on the private balcony of my secure new apartment did not bring me a triumphant feeling of spectacular victory over my defeated enemies. I simply felt an immense wave of profound psychological relief washing over my soul as I prepared to rebuild my life entirely on my own terms. Looking back on the entire devastating ordeal, I realize that experiencing such profound betrayal ultimately taught me several unforgettable lessons about self-preservation. Financial independence remains the absolute greatest form of defensive power any woman can possess to protect herself from manipulation. You must never surrender complete control of your hard-earned resources to another individual, regardless of your romantic commitments. Biological relationships do not provide anyone with a permanent excuse to exploit your kindness or violently disrespect your personal sanctuary. You possess every right to establish impenetrable boundaries to protect your mental health from incredibly toxic relatives. The most devastating form of revenge does not involve engaging in pointless screaming matches or desperately trying to verbally destroy your opponent. True justice involves permanently walking away while allowing their own malicious lies to naturally orchestrate their complete destruction. This original story is officially produced by our channel to highlight the absolute necessity of maintaining strong personal boundaries. We aim to educate our viewers on handling severe domestic betrayals through calm logic and calculated legal strategies rather than purely emotional reactions. The main character successfully protected her psychological well-being by executing a brilliant financial exit strategy that left absolutely no room for future emotional manipulation. The arrogant antagonists ultimately suffered devastating legal and financial consequences directly resulting from their incredibly selfish decisions to exploit a loyal family member. Thank you sincerely for patiently listening to my incredibly challenging story until the very end. Your continued support provides immense comfort to me during this massive transitional period in my personal life. How would you systematically handle the situation if you discovered your own spouse secretly plotting to steal your home? Please share your detailed thoughts and strategies in the comment section below.
Câu chuyện hư cấu này khắc họa một kịch bản phản bội gia đình đầy kịch tính, trong đó Marion được xây dựng như một nhân vật tỉnh táo và kiểm soát tình hình bằng lý trí. Thay vì phản ứng bộc phát khi phát hiện chồng và em gái cấu kết chiếm đoạt tài sản, cô lựa chọn âm thầm thu thập bằng chứng và triển khai chiến lược tài chính, pháp lý. Chi tiết cô chủ động cắt nguồn thanh toán thế chấp và rút toàn bộ tài chính cho thấy sự chuẩn bị kỹ lưỡng và khả năng tự bảo vệ cao. Ngược lại, Adrian và Rhonda đại diện cho sự chủ quan và tham lam. Họ tin rằng có thể thao túng Marion, nhưng việc Adrian mất khả năng chi trả khiến kế hoạch sụp đổ nhanh chóng. Tình huống Rhonda rời bỏ Adrian khi anh ta không còn giá trị tài chính là minh chứng rõ ràng cho mối quan hệ dựa trên lợi ích. Từ câu chuyện có thể rút ra bài học, độc lập tài chính là yếu tố sống còn, cần thiết, lập ranh giới rõ ràng trong các mối quan hệ và sự bình tĩnh chiến lược luôn hiệu quả hơn phản ứng cảm xúc. Nếu bạn rơi vào tình huống tương tự, bạn sẽ đối diện hay âm thầm chuẩn bị như Marion? Hãy chia sẻ góc nhìn của bạn nhé!